Hi everyone, Kelt here, bringing you my thoughts on the British royal family, and today I'm going to be talking a bit more about the removal of titles. So, I've been looking into all the stuff that's happening with the royal family lately, and it's really got me thinking about how everything seems to be connecting in this way that just feels so deliberate, like it is all building towards some kind of real moment of truth, especially when it comes to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and their whole situation with the titles and the children. You know, I sort of have this theory that it's been on my mind, and I wanted to share it because it ties together so many of these threads that we've all been watching unfold. So let's start with Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. They are still holding on to their titles right now, aren't they? And I believe that that's going to create this situation where Harry and Meghan end up being backed into a corner, no matter how things play out from here. Let me try to explain what I mean, because there's an awful lot to unpack here. If the decision comes down from the top, whether it's King Charles or down the line, Prince William, to strip Harry and Meghan of their titles as Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and then to go even further and remove the Prince and Princess titles from Archie and Lilibet, well, Beatrice and Eugenie would have every reason to look at that and question it deeply. They would be saying something along the lines of, wait a moment, why are we permitted to keep our princess titles when our father, Prince Andrew, has been through all of this terrible scandal? It simply would not seem fair nor consistent, would it? They've been caught in the shadow of their father's associations with Jeffrey Epstein and all that came after, yet they remain princesses, still in the line of succession, still able to use those titles in their personal and professional lives. And from what I've read recently, that status is not changing anytime soon. For instance, just a couple of days ago, there was an article in the New York Post titled Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie's Royal Fate Revealed after Dad Andrew's titles are stripped, and it made it clear that they are retaining everything, no alterations to their positions. People magazine covered it similarly, noting that their royal titles stay intact, even as Andrew has been fully divested of his honours, including his place in the Order of the Garter. And USA Today followed up with a piece asking, will Beatrice and Eugenie still be princesses? And the answer was, yes they will, in line with the old rules from King George V's letters patent from 1917. So with that precedent set, if Beatrice and Eugenie hold on, it puts an enormous spotlight on Harry and Meghan's side of things. The counter-argument from William or the palace could be straightforward. Yes, we have irrefutable proof of Beatrice and Eugenie's birth certificates, of their births, because we have their birth certificates, hospital records, the full documentation that has always been standard for the royal family, because then that keeps it in line with George V's letters patent, which basically says that a grandchild of the monarch, a blood-born grandchild of the monarch, can have a prince and princess title. So, what they would say is, yes, we have proof of Beatrice and Eugenie's births. They have the full documentation that has always been standard for the royal family. But for your children, Harry and Meghan, we do not have that same level of transparency or verification. So it would force their hand. They would finally have to produce those original birth certificates and provide proper validation of the births, and perhaps even agree to DNA testing to confirm that Archie and Lilibet are indeed their biological children, born directly from Meghan's body. And I have to admit, after all the questions and inconsistencies that have swelled around for years, and I was one of the first, I think, to bring this up. Anyway, I do not believe that to be the case at all. It just does not add up when you look at the details. This whole dynamic with the York family feels like it's setting a precedent almost by accident, or maybe not so accidentally. Andrew has lost his titles, his military patronages, his right to use his Royal Highness, and he has even been asked to vacate Royal Lodge. But his daughters, well, they are untouched. The Express had an article the other day explaining the real reason that Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie will keep their royal titles, pointing to how their status as grandchildren of the monarch protects them under those historical rules. And on social media, people are weighing in too. Just yesterday on X, this user, Jill Ann, posted something that captured the frustration some feel. Beatrice and Eugenie should lose their titles. They're not innocent in the Andrew affair. They have gained business opportunities and money and have 2 royal grace and favour apartments at both Kensington Palace and St James's Palace. So this has people agreeing along with this because it raises that point about whether they have benefited unfairly. And then there was another post from Verity, the news account, quoting the palace statement. Andrew did not object to losing his titles and honours, but Beatrice and Eugenie retained theirs. And somebody else replied to a political figure's call to abolish the monarchy by saying, if we can de-royal Andrew, we can do the rest as well. Surely Beatrice and Eugenie must lose their titles as well. They are only princesses because of what exactly? It's definitely stirring up conversation. These voices are highlighting the unevenness. Now, this is where my theory takes shape, and it's quite layered when you consider the financial side of things for the Yorks. I suspect that the real scrutiny is falling on whether Beatrice and Eugenie have been compromised in some way, particularly around money. Andrew's massive settlements from the Epstein case, questions about how his daughters have built their careers while leaning on royal connections, perhaps even covering for him financially to keep things quiet. As adults now in their 30s and with families of their own, if any evidence emerges that they were involved in hiding or managing those issues, it could lead to them losing their titles too. There was a post on X from Montecito Royals responding to the news, pointing out that the palace's reasoning for Andrew was specifically about the allegations against him, not just him stepping back as a working royal, so it does not automatically set a precedent for Harry. But then it notes that Beatrice and Eugenie keeping theirs means no basis for stripping titles from children based on parents' actions alone, which ties right back to my point. And another from Sterling, wondering if Andrew accepted his punishment on the condition that his daughters stay protected, mentioning how he pushed for their royal weddings back in the day. If that financial angle does come to light, and Beatrice and Eugenie end up losing their titles as a result, it still leaves Harry and Meghan in this impossible lose-lose position, because then the justification shifts. It's not about punishing children for the sins of their parents, like Andrew's scandals tainting his daughters unfairly. No, it would be about individual accountability, clear evidence of wrongdoing by the people themselves. You cannot remove titles from Beatrice and Eugenie solely because of what their father did. But if they have been complicit as adults, then that changes everything. And the exact same logic would apply to Harry and Meghan. Their titles could be revoked, but only after that proof of the children's births is demanded and examined. Because without solid birth records, the whole foundation crumbles. We've seen so many stories about this over the years. Take Archie's birth certificate. There was that big controversy back in 2019 when Meghan's name was initially listed and then changed to her title, and she claimed the palace insisted on it. But reports from E! News clarified it was just standard protocol, not at her request. So, if they come for Harry and Meghan's children, the precedent is already baked in. Titles can stay unless there's misconduct or a clear threat to the crown. Which leads me to the other fork in this road. Suppose the spotlight turns back onto the Yorks and investigators uncover that Beatrice and Eugenie haven't been quite as squeaky clean as they've pretended. I'm talking finances, real questions about where the money's come from, whether they've quietly helped Andrew dodge bills or use their royal connections for business deals that cross lines. If that's the case, then as adults fully responsible for their actions, they could lose everything. And I've seen people say that online. Yesterday, this account at Royal Truths posted, Beatrice and Eugenie are not victims. They've enjoyed the perks their whole lives. Time to face consequences. And at Monarchy Watch replied, exactly. If Harry loses his for disloyalty, why not them for covering up Andrew's mess? So that sentiment is growing. And here's where it's lose-lose for Harry and Meghan. If Beatrice and Eugenie keep their titles, it's simple. The palace can say, we're fair. Yours are being challenged because we need proof. Proof, the certificates, the hospital records, the DNA. No proof, no titles. But if Beatrice and Eugenie do lose theirs, because, say, someone leaked documents that showed they signed off on a shady deal with Epstein-linked money, then the rationale shifts. We're not punishing children for parent sins, we're acting when adults have actively participated in wrongdoing. So the same standard would apply to Harry and Meghan. Either way, the demand for transparency stays. Because unlike with Beatrice and Eugenie, where everyone knows when and where they were born, we still don't have full public access to Archie's or Lilibet's original certificates. We know Meghan's name was swapped out for her title on Archie's, supposedly at the palace's insistence, but that only happened months later. And Lilibet's was filed in California, signed by Doria Ragland as a witness, someone who has allegedly done time for fraud. And again, no hospital photo, no press outside the delivery ward. Nothing. Compare that to William and Catherine. We saw them leave the hospital holding each baby. It's not conspiracy, it's just totally different. And when you pair that with Meghan's comments about never being allowed to have photos taken with Archie in hospital, or Harry refusing to let the press near Lilibet, it does raise eyebrows. Add in the financial angle. People forget this, but Harry and Meghan left partly because they said the royal family wouldn't help fund security. Yet now they're worth, allegedly, over 60 million from Netflix, Spotify and Archewell. So where did that start? How did it snowball so fast? It smells like something was pre-planned, and if they were willing to stage births or surrogacies, why wouldn't they stage a little origin story for the fortune as well? I'm not saying I know for sure. I'm saying it's coherent. It's consistent with everything we've seen. And the beauty of this theory is, I don't need to prove it. All we need is for the palace to force the issue. Once Beatrice and Eugenie either stay or go, the dominoes fall. If they stay, Harry must prove blood. If they go, Harry must prove blood. Either way, the birth certificates come out. And if they don't, or if they do, and something's off, well, that's the end. That's the end of Harry and Meghan and the invisible children. Because without it, the whole legitimacy of their titles just collapses. And remember, we've had no proper photos from the births. Nothing from the hospital, no midwives speaking out, as with William's children. Everything's been so controlled and so secretive. If they lose the titles, or even if they don't, the public won't buy it. And then there's the surrogacy angle. We've had ex-staff whistleblowers like that friend of Jessica Mulroney who said Meghan was never pregnant. And that Vanity Fair piece where they talked about egg freezing but never confirmed IVF. I talked about this many, many years ago. I doubt that they would risk it. And if they refuse, well, that's proof enough, isn't it? Look at how the palace handled Diana and Charles's children. Full public disclosure. Even Sarah Ferguson and Andrew's births were announced live on TV. But Meghan, that was all hidden. No press pack, no fly on the wall. Why? So, wrapping this up, the York precedent works for them whichever way it falls. Keep the princesses, and they expose the Sussex gap. Strip them and they justify stripping Harry as well, but only after the birth certificates come out. Either way, we're finally going to get answers. Or rather, they're going to have to give them, or lose everything. And I really cannot see Charles, or rather especially William, waiting. I think this is coming very soon, because I think that William is as fed up, if not more, than we, the general public. So let me have your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.